Hi, Room 7 and Room 13. I'm here to read our next installment of Pippi Longstocking. In case we've forgotten, we left off where Pippi was talking about putting the eggs in your hair and how the bald man they'd call the police because he was bald because he ate the eggs instead of put them on his head. While she was talking, Pippi carefully picked out all the broken eggshell from the bowl with her fingers. Then she took a bath brush which hung on the wall and began beating the batter so that it splattered on the walls. At last she threw what was left on the griddle that stood on the stove. When the pancake was brown on one side, she threw it halfway to the ceiling so that it turned in the air and was caught in the pan again. And when it was done, she threw it across the kitchen so it landed on a plate, standing on the table. "Eat it," she cried. "Eat it before it gets cold." Tommy and Annika ate and thought it a very good pancake. Afterwards, Pippi invited them into the parlor. There was only one piece of furniture in it. It was an enormous cupboard with many, many little drawers. Pippi opened them one by one and showed Tommy and Annika all the treasure she kept there. There were strange birds' eggs and unusual shells and stones, lovely little boxes, beautiful silver mirrors, a pearl necklace, and much more, all bought by Pippi and her father during their travels around the world. Pippi gave her new playmates each a little present as a keepsake. Tommy's was a knife with a gleaming mother-of-pearl handle, and Annika's a little box decorated on the lid with pieces of shell. In the box lay a ring set with a green stone. "If you should happen to go home now," said Pippi, "you'll be able to come again tomorrow, because if you don't go home, you can't very well come back, and that would be a shame." Tommy and Annika thought so too, so they went home. They went past the horse who had eaten up all his oats and out through the gate of Villacula Cottage. Mr. Nielsen waved his hat to them as they left. Chapter 2. Pippi is a turnip stuffer and gets into a fight. Annika woke especially early the next morning. She bounded out of bed and quickly padded over to Tommy. "Wake up, Tommy," she said, tugging at his arm. "Let's go and see that funny girl with the big shoes." In an instant, Tommy was wide awake. "All the time I was sleeping, I knew there was going to be something nice about today, though I couldn't remember just what it was," he had said, struggling out of his pajama top. Then they both went into the bathroom and washed themselves and brushed their teeth much faster than usual. They were merry and quick about putting on their clothes, and a whole hour earlier than their mother had expected, they came sliding down the banister from the top floor and landed exactly by the breakfast table, where they sat down and shouted that they wanted their hot chocolate now, at once. "And may I ask," said their mother, "just what is it that makes you in such a hurry?" "Oh, we're going over to see the new girl in the house next door," said Tommy. "We might stay all day," said Annika. That morning, Pippi was baking ginger snaps. She had made a huge pile of dough and was rolling it out on the kitchen floor. "'Cause can you imagine," said Pippi to her little monkey, "what earthly good a pastry board would be when you're going to make at least 500 ginger snaps?" There she lay on the floor and cut out heart-shaped ginger snaps as if her life depended on it. Do stop walking in the dough, Mr. Nielsen," she said irritably just as the doorbell rang. Pippi ran to open it. She was as white as a miller from top to toe, and when she shook her hands heartily with Tommy and Annika, a whole cloud of flour came down on them. "How nice of you to drop in," she said, shaking a new cloud of flour out of her apron. Tommy and Annika got so much of it in their throats they had to cough. "What are you doing?" asked Tommy. "Well, if I say I'm sweeping the chimney, you wouldn't believe me. As clever as you are," said Pippi. "As a matter of fact, I'm baking, but that will soon be out of the way. You can sit on the wood box in the meantime." Pippi could work very fast. Tommy and Annika sat on the wood box and watched how she cut her way forward through the dough, and how she threw the biscuit onto the tins, and how she slung the tins into the oven. They thought it was all rather like something in a movie. "All clear," said Pippi at last, slamming the oven door after the last tins with a bang. "What are we going to do now?" asked Tommy. "Well, I don't know what you're thinking of doing," said Pippi, "but as for me, I'm not one who can take things easy. I happen to be a turnip stuffer. So, of course, I never have a free moment." "What did you say you were?" asked Annika. "A turnip stuffer." "What's that?" asked Tommy. "Somebody who finds the stuff that turns up if only you look, of course. What else would it be?" said Pippi, sweeping together all the flour on the floor into a little pile. "The whole world is filled with things that are just waiting for someone to come along and find them. And that's just what a turnip stuffer does. What sort of things? Asked Annika. Oh, all sorts, said Pippi. Gold nuggets and ostrich feathers and dead mice and rubber bands and tiny little grouse and that kind of thing. Tommy and Annika thought it sounded a great deal of fun and at once wanted to become turnip stuffers. Though Tommy said he hoped he would find a gold nugget and not a little grouse. Well, we'll have to wait and see, said Pippi. You always find something, but we'll have to hurry up so other turnip stuffers don't come first and take away all the gold nuggets and things that are waiting hereabouts. The 3 turnip stuffers set out. They thought it was best to begin hunting around the houses in the neighborhood because Pippi said that even if there were little grouse deep in the woods, the very best things were almost always found near where people lived. Though not always, she said. I've seen it just the other way about. I remember a time when I was looking for things in the jungles of Borneo, right in the middle of a wild jungle where no man had ever put his foot. What do you suppose I found? A lovely wooden leg. I gave it away later to an old man who was one-legged, and he told me that money couldn't buy a wooden leg like that. Tommy and Annika watched Pippi to see how a turnip stuffer should act. She ran from one side of the road to the other, shading her eyes with her hand, searching and searching. Once in a while, she crept on her knees and stuck her hands through a fence, saying in a disappointed voice, "Strange, I was sure I saw a gold nugget." "Can you really take anything you find?" asked Annika. "Oh, yeah, anything that's lying on the ground," said Pippi. A little further on, an old man lay sleeping on the lawn in the front of his house. "That's lying on the ground," said Pippi, "and we found him. We shall take him." Tommy and Annika were horrified. No, Pippi, we cannot take a gentleman. That would never do," said Tommy. "Anyway, what would we do with him?" "What we'd do with him? Oh, we could use him for lots of things. We could keep him in a little rabbit hutch instead of a rabbit and feed him dandelion leaves. But if you don't want to, we can leave him here for all I care. Still, I hate to think that some other turnip stuffer may come along and carry him off." They went on. Suddenly, Pippi gave a wild shriek. "Well, I never saw the likes!" she cried, picking up an old rusty cake tin out of the grass. "What a find! One can never have too many tins." Tommy looked rather suspiciously at the tin and asked, "What can you use that for?" "Oh, it can be used for lots of things," said Pippi. "One way is to put cakes in it. Then it will be one of those nice tins with cakes. Another way is not to put cakes in it. Then it will be a tin without cakes, which isn't quite as nice, but it would do well enough too." She inspected the tin, which really was quite rusty and had a hole in the bottom. "It looks as though this one is a tin without cakes," she said thoughtfully, "but you can put it over your head and pretend it's the middle of the night." And she did just that. With the tin over her head, she wandered through the neighborhood like a little tin tower, and she didn't stop before she fell on her stomach over a wire fence. There was a terrific crash when the cake tin hit the ground. "There you see," said Pippi, removing the tin. "If I hadn't had this on me, I would have fallen face first and knocked myself silly." "Yes, but," said Annika, "if you hadn't had the tin on, why, you'd never have tripped over the fence." But before she had finished speaking, another shriek came from Pippi, who triumphantly held up an empty cotton reel. We are going to stop there, room 7 and 13, so that you can think about your response for this installation of Pippi Longstocking. Our response this week is you going to either say what you think an empty cotton reel is, or what Pippi is going to do with an empty cotton reel. You can draw your response, you can write your response, or you may take a video of your response. Can't wait to see what everyone thinks an empty cotton reel is. See you soon. Bye.